There's something I need you to hear, not just with your ears, but with your entire being. Maybe for the first time in your life, let this truth land. You are not broken, you are not lazy. You are not behind. You are carrying pain that was never yours to begin with. Pain you absorbed just to survive. You were trained to endure, not to feel safe. You were taught to perform, not to be. So when the world demands consistency, ambition, boldness, there's a quiet resistance inside you. Not because you're unwilling, but because your nervous system still doesn't feel it's safe to be fully alive. Carl Jung warned us, unless we make the unconscious conscious, it rules our life and we label it fate. And for many of us, our unconscious is frozen in time, still bonded to the version of ourselves that first got hurt. This is the part of you that never finished growing, that was interrupted mid-bloom. We call it the inner child, but it's more than a concept. It's a living part of your psyche that holds both your deepest wounds and your greatest potential. Let's travel back beyond the defenses, beyond the silence, beyond the mask, back to before you learned how to shrink, back to the you that didn't yet know how to hide to keep peace, the you who hadn't been taught that love must be earned, or that emotions were inconveniences. You were once raw, curious, unfiltered. You were honest. You cried when it hurt. You asked without shame. You laughed with abandon. You trusted before you learned that trust could be weaponized against you. That version of youth, original you, is not gone. They're still here, waiting, calling out from the depths of your unconscious, hoping to be remembered, acknowledged, embraced. The inner child isn't just a metaphor. It's a living, breathing component of your psychological structure. It holds your very first memory of connection, joy, love, and equally, it holds your first heartbreaks, abandonment, shame, fear. These early experiences didn't just happen to you. They became you. They shaped your neural pathways, your belief systems, your way of being in the world. Jung understood the child not just as innocence, but as the root of all inner life. He said the child is the seed of potential, not only of who you were, but who you still can become, if you are willing to turn inward and reclaim the parts of you that got left behind. As a child, your nervous system was still growing. You didn't just hear what people said, you felt the vibe, the tone, the absence. Your little body was a sponge absorbing everything. You noticed if your tears were met with kindness or punishment. You noticed if your joy was met with a smile or a sigh. You felt whether you were seen as a blessing or a burden. The emotional patterns that formed back then became your blueprint. They became the unconscious programming that still runs your life today, decades later. So when people say move on, they miss the point, because your body remembers what your mind has long tried to forget. Trauma lives in the tissues, not just in thought. That's the raw truth of the inner child. It doesn't move with time. If your core needs were unmet at age 5, then a part of you still waits at 5, hoping, aching. And when you're rejected now, criticized now, ghosted now, it's not just your adult ego that winces. It's that 5-year-old who once felt invisible, unworthy, too much or not enough. Ever had a meltdown over something small? A text that didn't come, a voice that got a little too loud, feedback that sent you spiraling into self. That's not irrationality, it's memory. That's your inner child, speaking in the only language they know. Emotion. Pure, unfiltered, overwhelming emotion. The hard truth is, many of us have crafted entire personalities around defending that child. We built elaborate fortresses of behavior to keep them safe from further harm. Maybe you became the overachiever because you learned that love was conditional on performance. Every A was an attempt to earn the affection that should have been freely given. Maybe you became the peacemaker because conflict used to mean emotional chaos. You learned to read the room, to manage everyone's moods, to sacrifice your needs for stability. Maybe you became a loner because connection once meant betrayal. You decided it was safer to need no one than to risk being hurt again. Maybe you became the class clown because laughter felt safer than tears. If you could make them laugh, maybe they wouldn't notice how much you were hurting inside. Maybe you became hypervigilant, always scanning for danger, because your environment once felt unpredictable. Your nervous system learned to stay in survival mode. Maybe you became a perfectionist because mistakes once meant shame, criticism, or withdrawal of love. You learned that being flawless was the only way to be lovable. Maybe you became a people pleaser because saying no once meant anger, guilt trips, or emotional punishment. You learned that your needs didn't matter. Maybe you became emotionally numb because feeling too much once overwhelmed the adults around you. You learned to shut down rather than be too sensitive. None of that happened because you were flawed. It happened because you were wise. You adapted. You survived. Your child's self made brilliant decisions with limited resources. But you're not that helpless child anymore. You're someone with tools now. You have agency, choice, power. You can provide for yourself what you once desperately needed from others. And healing starts the moment you gently turn toward that inner part of you and say, I'm here now. I've got you. You're safe with me. Jung said that to look inward is to awaken. Awakening isn't loud, it's not flashy. It's not about positive thinking or forcing yourself to get over it. It's the quiet realization that your fear isn't a character flaw, it's a bruise. It's not your fault, it's your history. It's an echo of old pain reverberating in present moments, Shame, it was handed to you by someone who never healed their own. Anxiety, it was learned in an environment where safety wasn't guaranteed. Depression, it might be the soul's way of protecting you from feeling too much in a world that couldn't hold your sensitivity. Awakening is walking back to the child, not to fix or critique, but to listen, to sit beside them, to say, I see you, I hear you, I won't leave you behind. This isn't about blame. It's not about making your parents or caregivers into villains. They were children once too, carrying their own wounds, doing their best with their own limitations. This is about breaking the cycle, about being the adult to your inner child that you needed when you were small, about reparenting yourself with the love, patience, and understanding you deserved. Real healing is born in compassion, not criticism, not by fighting your symptoms, but by understanding the source, not by bypassing your pain, but by befriending it. Your inner child isn't a liability. They're your origin. They hold your creativity, your spontaneity, your capacity for wonder and joy. And when you reconnect with them, when you let their voice back into the room, you don't just soothe your past. You unlock your future, because that child holds dreams you've forgotten. They remember what made you feel alive before the world taught you to be practical, reasonable, realistic. They remember your natural gifts before you learned to doubt them. They hold your authentic voice before you learned to say what others wanted to hear. The journey inward isn't easy. It requires courage to face what you've spent years avoiding. It asks you to feel what you've worked so hard to numb. But this is where true power lies, not in conquering your emotions, but in integrating them. Not in silencing your inner child, but in creating space for their voice. When you begin this work, you might notice resistance. Part of you might say this is self-indulgent, too touchy-feely, a waste of time. That voice of resistance is often the part of you that learned early that feelings don't matter, that you need to be strong, that vulnerability is weakness. But vulnerability isn't weakness, it's the birthplace of courage, creativity, and authentic connection. It's the gateway to becoming whole. Start small. Notice when you're triggered. Instead of immediately judging yourself or trying to push the feeling away, pause and ask, how old do I feel right now? Often, you'll discover you feel much younger than your chronological age. That's your inner child stepping forward, asking to be seen and understood. Speak to that part of you with kindness. I see you're scared. That makes sense. Let me help you feel safe. I see you're hurt. You didn't deserve that pain. This isn't about dramatic inner child work or elaborate therapeutic processes, though those can be valuable. This is about daily moments of self-compassion. It's about catching yourself in self-criticism and asking, would I speak to a child this way? If the answer is no, then why are you speaking to your inner child this way? It's about noticing your needs for rest, for play, for comfort, for connection, and honoring them instead of pushing through with endless productivity. Your inner child has basic needs that don't disappear just because you're an adult. They need to feel safe, seen, heard, valued, and loved unconditionally. When these needs go unmet in adulthood, you might find yourself seeking fulfillment in places that can't provide it: relationships, achievements, substances, distractions. But when you learn to meet these needs yourself, to be a loving parent to your own inner child, something profound shifts. You stop looking outside yourself for validation. You begin to trust your own instincts, your own feelings, your own knowing. You start to believe that you matter, that your experience is valid, that you deserve love. This work ripples out into every area of your life. Your relationships become more authentic because you're no longer performing for love, you're already giving it to yourself. Your creativity flows more freely because you're not afraid of making mistakes or being judged. Your inner child loves to play, experiment, and explore. Your boundaries become clearer because you're no longer abandoning yourself to keep others comfortable. You know your worth and you protect it. Your decision-making improves because you're considering not just what's practical, but what brings you joy, what honors your values, what feels aligned with your authentic self. Sometimes people worry that focusing on their inner child will make them selfish or immature. The opposite is true. When you take responsibility for your own emotional needs, you stop unconsciously expecting others to fill the void. You become more genuinely generous, not out of desperation but from overflow. When you honor your own sensitivity, you develop deeper empathy for others. When you accept your own imperfections, you become more accepting of others' humanity. The goal isn't to become childish, but to reclaim the childlike qualities that make life worth living: joy, authenticity, creativity, trust, and love. Remember, your inner child has been with you through everything. They were there during your darkest moments, your loneliest nights, your biggest fears. They never abandoned you, even when it felt like everyone else did. They've been waiting patiently for you to turn around and acknowledge their presence. This isn't about living in the past or becoming a victim of your history. It's about integrating all parts of yourself so you can show up as whole, authentic, and alive. It's about honoring your story without letting it imprison you. It's about healing your wounds without wearing them as identity. It's about transformation, not just understanding. The wounded child within you is also the magical child, the wise child, the creative child. When you heal the wounds, you don't lose the gifts. you liberate them. You might find that as you do this work, certain relationships change. People who were used to your old patterns might resist your growth. That's okay. Healing isn't about making everyone else comfortable. It's about becoming who you were meant to be before the world told you who you should be. Some people will celebrate your growth. Others might feel threatened by it. Both responses give you information about the health of your relationships. Your inner child will guide you. They have an innate knowing about who feels safe and who doesn't, what environments nurture and which ones deplete. Trust that knowing. Your child's self was once dismissed when they tried to tell adults that something didn't feel right. Don't dismiss them now. As you continue this journey, be patient with yourself. Healing isn't linear. Some days you'll feel strong and integrated. Other days you'll feel like that hurt child again. Both are part of the process. There's no final destination where your inner child is fixed or where you never feel triggered again. The goal is relationship and ongoing, compassionate dialogue between your adult self and your child self. A partnership where both voices are valued. Your adult self provides safety, resources, and perspective. Your child self provides vitality, creativity, and authentic feeling. Together, they create a complete human being, one who can be both wise and wonder-filled, both grounded and free, both strong and tender. This is what Jung meant by making the unconscious conscious. It's not about analyzing your childhood endlessly or blaming your past forever. It's about bringing the hidden parts of yourself into the light of awareness, where they can be healed, integrated, and transformed. It's about stopping the unconscious patterns that keep you stuck and starting the conscious choices that set you free. Your inner child has been calling to you for years. They've been speaking through your symptoms, your patterns, your deepest longings. They're not your burden, they're your gift. They hold the key to your healing, your creativity, your capacity for joy, and your ability to love fully. The invitation is simple but profound. Will you listen? Will you turn toward the child within with curiosity instead of judgment? Will you offer them what they've always needed: unconditional love, patient understanding, and the promise that they will never be abandoned again? If you're willing, something beautiful awaits. Not the absence of pain, but the presence of wholeness. Not the elimination of your sensitivity, but the celebration of it. Not the silencing of your inner child, but their liberation. Not the perfection of your personality, but the integration of your soul. This is the path home, not to a place, but to yourself. Not to who you should be, but to who you've always been beneath the layers of protection and adaptation. Your inner child is waiting. They've been waiting your whole life, and they have so much to show you, so much to teach you, so much love to give you. All you have to do is turn around, open your arms, and say, I'm here now. I've got you. We're going to heal this together. And in that moment of recognition, something that was broken begins to mend. Something that was lost begins to return. Something that was sleeping begins to awaken. You begin to remember who you really are, and you realize you were never broken at all. You were just waiting to be whole.